back, everybody. Today we are back at it again with 5 NFL draft stars and 5 potential busts, or guys that could underperform relative to their draft cost in the NFL draft. As we're a few weeks away from the NFL draft, I would love to highlight some of these guys that I think are going to be stars. So drop a comment what video you want to see next, and hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for all of the NFL draft coverage. And let's start it off with my overall number one prospect. If we were just going pound for pound, similar to fighting, and positional advantage simply didn't matter, Caleb Downs would go first overall. He is an absolute ball hawk, a game wrecker, whatever you want to call him. He is. Obviously won the championship at Ohio State just a few years ago, and you can line him up almost anywhere. I think the whole narrative that he's a safety and that he can't go within the top 5 to 10 is absolutely crazy. You saw guys like Kyle Hamilton get underdrafted just due to their position, but in all of these redrafts, Kyle Hamilton would be a top 5 pick. So Caleb Downs is even more talented than him, and I think he could absolutely go within the top 4 to 5 picks. I think teams like the Titans or the Giants at pick 4 and 5 should definitely be interested, because you can line them both in the back end, but also bring them down closer to the box in order to give offenses a whole new kind of wrinkle to have to think about. He can do almost everything on the field. You could always line him up on special teams. I'm not sure you would want to try and risk his health, but he is a beast, especially in punt return. So another aspect of his game that he could give you just off one draft pick. And I think Caleb Downs is going to be an absolute steal of a pick in the 2026 NFL draft. However, a guy that I think is going to get overdrafted here, it's going to be Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State. Don't get me wrong, I love the ceiling of Tyson. I think he could actually have the potential to be a CeeDee Lamb type prospect. However, the main concern is really just the health issues. He hasn't been able to stay healthy consistently over the past few years, and I don't see any reason why that would suddenly change. So Jordan Tyson, potential bust here, especially if he goes as the wide receiver 1 of this draft class. I would much rather have Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate from this draft class. And Jordan Tyson just really hasn't been too impressive outside of the few games where he has monster performances, especially in the red zone. But as of right now, the injury concerns are much of a kind of red flag for me on my draft board, and I wouldn't be touching him in the top 10 picks. But after that point, I would have no problem taking the flyer on Jordan Tyson, because I think if you're able to keep him on the field, he is a ruthless run blocker and can also get down the field as well as any wide receiver in this draft class, and can be an absolute home run. But I think putting all of your eggs in one basket in a top 7 pick for Jordan Tyson just would not be the smartest decision in my eyes. So that's why he falls into the bust category. And then we've got Jadarian Price, the running back from Notre Dame. Yes, it is not Jeremiah Love. It is the next running back on their own team. However, I think he is my RB2 of this entire draft class. He averages over 6 yards per carry and is an absolute beast, especially in the receiving game. I think a pro comp would either be Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook. I don't think he's as big or as wide as Dalvin Cook, but Alvin Kamara in the pass game, it's just kind of those unique abilities where he just seems so hard to get actually brought down to the ground. He's so elusive in open space, and I think he is going to be a game changer for whichever team drafts him. I do think he is still kind of best used in a committee, because he isn't the greatest inside those short yardage scenarios, but going outside and getting to the kind of outside zone schemes, I think Jadarian Price can definitely hit the home run from anywhere. Some areas he needs to work on is pass protection, but in the receiving game, he definitely makes up for it on all those kind of running back screens. He can get into open space like no one else in this draft class. So Jadarian Price, who has still just kind of been a victim of a committee, the best is yet to come for him, and I think if you're a second-round pick or a third-round pick team, you could definitely take your offense to the next level by selecting Jadarian Price. And then we've got Denzel Boston, the wide receiver from Washington, as a bust here. He is 6'4", but I just don't see the high upside for him. I think he profiles more as a Michael Pittman and kind of slightly watered down T. Higgins, in the sense that I don't think he can actually stretch the field as good as him, but I think he's just going to be a red zone threat and nothing really more than that. He struggled to gain a true separation at the collegiate level, and I know that the kind of upside is that he can kind of separate in all the 3 phases of the field, but as of right now, I kind of just see him as a red zone wide receiver, and I think he would be a solid wide receiver too, but a lot of people saying that teams could draft him and be a day 1 wide receiver 1 for an NFL team, I think are crazy. I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers try to take him at pick number 21. Pairing him and Metcalf would be great, but I think the upside for Denzel Boston is a mid-level wide receiver 2 on a roster. I think he's very clearly below the main tier of Tyson, Carnell Tate, and Mekhi Lemon, and I wouldn't be overdrafting Denzel Boston in hopes of getting an elite wide receiver, because if you don't find yourself drafting one of the top 3, I think you missed out in this draft class, and you might as well wait and take a flyer on one of these other wide receivers. So that's why he finds himself into the bust category. But then we've got a tight end here that I think could be a potential star. It's going to be Eli Stowers. He is currently the tight end 2 to 3, no matter who you kind of read your articles from. But he's firmly my tight end 2 and has a real argument to be the tight end 1. And based on value, I think he's a home run draft pick. I think he's going to be a day 2 or 3 pick here from Vanderbilt. And I think any NFL team would be lucky to have him. He's one of the most athletic tight ends that people actually have in this draft. And he has one of the surest hands in all of college football. It felt like any tough contested catch Stowers was coming down with. And he can definitely kind of play an Isaiah Likely type role. I think the ceiling is even higher for Eli Stowers because his ability to get upfield and get separation. I think he could work on some kind of high balling or kind of high pointing the football in the red zone. But outside of that, those are all coachable things. He has all the intangibles, great frame. He can put on a little bit more size, but his wiggle in his routes are absolutely insane. And I think in this new age of kind of getting those wide receiver type tight ends, Stowers fits the bill perfectly and could be a gem of this draft class. And then we switch guys here, same position here at tight end. It's going to be Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. I think the narrative that a lot of people are getting is that it's Kenyon Sadiq and then a massive tier break. I think Stowers is neck and neck with Sadiq as far as production-wise. And in the college football playoffs, Sadiq only averaged less than 30 receiving yards per game. He was averaging over the course of the season just north of 4 receptions per game. This is not going to cut it for a guy that you hope to be a kind of program-changing pick, especially if he goes in the top 15 where you hope to be kind of as productive as Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren, which teams have gone accustomed to thinking that if they take a tight end that early, that's the type of production they're going to get, which I think is going to overinflate his draft cost. And I think he's going to be the wrong selection because I don't think he's going to actually produce to that high standard that teams are hoping so. And I think he is kind of just more of a run-blocking tight end at this point of his career. I think he could develop into a star, but at this point, all I've seen in the past game with an explosive offense at Oregon, he was nothing more than just kind of a third option for their team. And I don't think he would be commanding much target share for an NFL roster from day one. So that's why he finds himself on the bust list. And then we've got Mekhi Lemon, the star here. I think he's a hybrid between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Zay Flowers. I know you guys love those pro comps, but I struggle to find one guy that he strictly plays like. So that's why I go with the combo of both, because he has more size than Zay Flowers, but also just kind of a little bit less wiggle than Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's why I came to the hybrid, but he's the wide receiver from USC. He stands only 5'11", which is a little bit of a red flag as far as drafting him as high as he's going in the NFL draft. However, you've seen guys in the slot be main contributors for their team. Guys like JSN, even in this past season, CeeDee Lamb, and all these guys that might not have the biggest size or frame to them have been dominating the NFL in recent years. And I think that's something that offensive coordinators are trying to look for, is the next best slot wide receiver to take their offense to the next level. And I think Mekhi Lemon is just that. He kind of struggled in the sense that he had Jacoby Lane on his same offense where they were sharing and competing for the same targets. But I think the best is to come from Lemon. I think he's going to have a strong showing from day one. And unlike a lot of these prospects in the NFL draft, I think he is game ready from day one to be an immediate starter and contributor. So that's why I think any contender or team that has playoff aspirations, or even a team with a young quarterback trying to match time frames with their quarterback, would be lucky to have Lemon on their wide receiver core. So he firmly is in my stars category. And then we've got Ty Simpson as a bust here, and I think it's just the turnovers that are the main red flag for me. He's a quarterback from Alabama, and at parts of the season, he was actually a Heisman favorite. in the main stretch, but he really kind of threw his way out of that, making bad decisions with the football, whether fumbles or just costly game-breaking interceptions. It just wasn't going to get it done, and I think when you get drafted to a team where you're going to be the quarterback, whether it's the Jets or another team with kind of limited weapons, you were experienced with Alabama that had top-tier wide receivers and running backs and a great NFL-ready offensive line pretty much, and now you're going into the next pro level, and you're not going to have as many weapons as your wide receivers, and you still can perform to the highest of standards at Alabama. That's why I kind of am a little bit concerned of him going forward and performing right away. I think if he gets drafted to a team like Minnesota or Los Angeles where he can kind of sit a year and really develop, maybe see the game, hope it'll slow down just a little bit. And I think if he's thrown into the fire right away, this could be an immediate kind of Sam Darnold situation where he gets written off too quick. But I think that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. But if the team is patient enough, I think Ty Simpson could be a quality NFL starter. He just needs a little bit more time to develop to be a quality pro quarterback. And then we've got a star here. It's going to be Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from Ohio State. I mentioned that top tier of wide receivers, especially Mekhi Lemon, but Carnell Tate is neck and neck with me for the wide receiver one. The main kind of red flag is the fact that he played alongside Jeremiah Smith, who is commanding doubles all over the field. And we just haven't seen it yet for Carnell Tate to be the wide receiver one and be able to kind of take on those coverages and the opposing team's best corner on a weekly basis. But I think I can safely project that he is more than capable of doing so. He had his biggest game against Michigan, so he's no kind of coward of the moment, and he did so in class with a big, long touchdown, and I think that's what he's going to be. He profiles like a T. Higgins, in my opinion. He's a big, physical wide receiver that not only can high point the football, especially in the red zone, but also in those deep routes. A 50-50 ball with him feels like a 70-30 ball, and I think he's just scratching at the surface of what he can become, but the only concern is the kind of the Jeremiah Smith being the overshadowing of Carnell Tate, but I think even being in Smith's shadow, he could still be a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL in year one, and I think teams like Cleveland staying in that home state would definitely be the pick for me in order to lock up your wide receiver position for the next foreseeable future. And then we've got Keldrick Falk as the bust here. So going back to defense, an edge rusher from Auburn. He ranked 150th in pass rush win rate. It's just a little bit concerning. I know the ceiling is so high for him. He's a young prospect that has all the intangibles as far as speed and quickness to the passer, but technique is the main flaw for him at this point of his game. And I think he can get definitely coached out of him and be able to be a star. I just think it's going to need time and patience, and I would not be touching him inside of the top 5 picks, which I've seen him projected. I think if you're kind of in that 10 to 15 range is where I would pull the trigger and take Falk because of that extreme upside like I mentioned. But as of right now, he is still very raw as a product, and unless he's able to get to the passer routinely all of a sudden and really develop those traits, I don't think he's going to finish as one of the top edge rushers looking back on this draft class. But he is certainly worth a flyer in order to kind of capture that full potential. But that is going to do it with 5 NFL potential stars and busts from this NFL draft class. Comment below which one was your favorite, and stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button for more 2026 NFL draft content. And that is going to do it. Peace.